Good morning, Marvel Rival nerds, and welcome to the first ever Marvel Rivals character tournament. In this video, we're going to break down who's the best character in the game from an all-around enjoyment perspective. We're looking for who's fun to play with/against, objective strength of each character, and some statistical backup from rivalsmeta.com. But before we get into it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and provide any feedback that you feel would be useful moving forward. So with the addition of Deadpool, the total number of characters in the game has jumped from 45 to 48, which gives us just enough to do a tournament-style bracket to compare all the characters to each other. The seeding for this tournament was determined by the quick play pick rates from the Marvel Rivals Heroes Hot List. Deadpool, being the newest character, was given the honor of being our number 1, number 2, and number 3 seeds, while everybody else fell in line. So we're going to go matchup by matchup and talk about which character we think is overall more enjoyable for the game. Alright, starting from the top, we have Iron Man versus Star-Lord. Looking at our two options, we have a very fun and easy to play character in Iron Man, and a little bit more difficult but higher ceiling character in Star-Lord. Obviously, Star-Lord has a better ult and a lot more success at higher levels, but Iron Man comes through with a lot of hype moments, especially with his ult. But from an overall standpoint, I think Star-Lord's just a little bit more of a fan favorite, a little bit more fun to play, and even though he's a little bit harder to play against, I'm going to say that Star-Lord wins this first round. Alright, so that pushes us to the next matchup, being Thor versus Torch. Obviously, two vastly different characters. One is a bully on the ground, where the other is a bully in the skies. I think that Torch is still recovering from his public lashings, all of the nerfs that he got from being easily the strongest character in the game. While I think those nerfs were very warranted, the buffs that he's gotten has put him in a perfect spot, not too oppressive and not too much of a letdown. However, Torch is still way too complicated for about 99% of the players, which is why he has one of the lowest pick rates of any character in the game, where Thor has been on the rise patch after patch, and he's finally in a great spot. So I think for this matchup, we are going with Thor. So for this matchup, obviously Punisher is a perfect starter character for most players. Very simple, and he has an ultimate that works at every single level. But Blade is actually a fan favorite, and he's on the come up. He's had a multitude of buffs throughout each season, but I think he's taken a little bit too long to get good, and he's lost a lot of his hype. While I think he is in a good spot right now, I'm going to give this one to Punisher, just for being a little bit more accessible. Next up, we have Squirrel Girl versus the Hulk. Hulk is my favorite character, so this is an easy decision for me, but let's give Squirrel Girl the benefit of the doubt. I think Squirrel Girl is very easy to play, but she's the kind of character that's either extremely fun or extremely boring depending on who you are. Hulk, on the other hand, is a very versatile character. He's fun to play, he has a million counters, so he's easy to play against. This is really a battle of perception, where people see Squirrel Girl as a low skill character and people see Hulk as a high skill character. But for me, it's a very easy win for Hulk. We'll see if somebody can take down my favorite character in the rounds to come. Moving on, we got Bucky versus Adam. Bucky is kind of a jack of all trades, one of the kings of anti-dive. He's kind of overtuned pretty much since the game's inception, where Adam has been a very controversial character. If I do have to give him 1+, he is probably one of the most self-sufficient healers in the game. He can take care of himself, he can win one-on-ones. He does have a game-changing ult, but when you have him on your team, it doesn't feel great. But if you build a team around the Atom, he can carry. However, Bucky is known as the server admin for a reason. He can fit in almost any team comp and do his job very effectively. So for this round, it's an easy choice. Next up, Venom versus Widow. Sometimes Venom feels like he's super unkillable, and he has a lot of dedicated fans that have learned so many techs on him. I think he's one of the highest skill ceiling characters in the game. And then you have Zaza, which everybody's calling a throw pick, especially nowadays. However, really good Widows are very scary, and you have to give them a lot of credit. They're taking on one of the hardest challenges in the game, trying to make this character good, but for an enjoyment standpoint, I think the community would say Venom is more fun to play against. So he's going to get my vote for this round, although I do very much respect a lot of the Widow players out there. Next up, Scarlet Witch versus Wolverine. So for this matchup, I think it's very awkward. Scarlet's a very low entry point character. She's a rather forgiving hero, especially with her escapes. Where Wolverine, in my opinion, isn't a ton of fun to play. However, he's very good at doing his job specifically, and he can carry a game all by himself. You've seen Wolverine's all over pro play, and it's hard to argue at his success. Where Scarlet has very little success anywhere near the top. Even though Scarlet is very good for the game, she hasn't been the most successful, and honestly, she isn't the most fun to play against. So for this round, I'm going Wolverine. Last matchup on the left-hand side, we have Mantis versus Groot. I see a lot of similarities in these two characters, where both of them struggle on the lower end of the skill ladder. You can easily find that either one of them are not providing that much value, but as you climb the ranks and you get to higher skill players, both of these characters can easily take over in very different ways. Groot completely makes the enemy change their game plan and change the way that they play just using his walls, where Mantis can enable her entire team in so many different ways. And damage boost in this game can honestly break everything. So I'm going to give this one to the character that has had more success in pro play, being Mantis. So this app does want us to complete one whole side before we move over to the other. So we're going to be moving on to the second round of the left hand side, starting off with Tank Pool versus Star-Lord. Now if you haven't had a ton of time to play Tank Pool, he's a very solid pick. He's very fun to play, but he's not as bouncy as the DPS version. However, I do think he's the most unique. With his bubble, increased fire rate, makes him feel like a character of his own. However, when you're comparing to Star-Lord, I still think Star-Lord has the competitive edge, but with the enjoyment factor being the highest thing on this list, I am going to give it to Deadpool as he's the new character, and it's going to be really tough to take him down. Next up, Thor versus Spidey. Now, Spider-Man is clearly still a fan favorite. However, he's honestly kind of a terrorist to the backline sometimes, and the pull-off is still complete ass. Whereas Thor has felt better and better to play over time, I think Spider-Man has him beat in that fun to play aspect. So even though for me, they're both a big pain in the butt, I am going to give this one to Spider-Man, as he's just the bigger fan favorite out of the two. Next up, Luna versus Punisher, a wild comparison for sure. Luna started this game off at the top and stayed there for a very long time. Since her nerfs, she's been slowly dropping. I think it's actually the change in how the game is played that has affected Luna the most. She still has one of the highest single target healing in the game and an amazing ultimate, but I think she's going to need more to keep up with the likes of Invis, Rocket, Gambit, these healers that don't need a ton from their team to survive, while also providing amazing heals to multiple people all at the same time. Now Luna versus Punisher, Punisher being very simple, he's used by a ton of players, he's a comfort pick for a lot of players, and his ultimate gets insane amounts of value. However, I don't think that's enough to beat Luna Snow even in her nerf state. So I think Luna edges out Punisher here, but this one could go either way. Next up, Hulk versus Jeff. This is a rough matchup for Hulk. Jeff is a fan favorite. While Hulk may be super versatile, Jeff is right up there with him in versatility, where he can damage, he can heal, he can team wipe with his ultimate, he has escapability, survivability. There's a lot you can do on him, and it is very fun. So I think this is where Hulk falls, unfortunately, and I have to give it to Jeff for overall enjoyment of the game. Now, we have one of the newest characters in the game being Gambit, up against the server admin himself. Now, Gambit was overtuned the moment he joined the game, but he still might have the strongest ultimate in the game, and he's still one of the most banned characters for a reason. Before the addition of Deadpool, I would have said he's the most unique strategist in the game, but how does he match up against Bucky? With Bucky being an all-around monster, can Gambit compare? I think he actually can. And if we look at the stats, for some reason Bucky falls off tremendously as you climb the ranks. So I'm going to take Gambit in this matchup. Let me know if I'm wrong. Next matchup, Venom versus Penny. We're looking at two tanks that haven't had their time at the top. Even after losing the Rocket team up, A lot of people have gained confidence when playing Penny, especially on her niche maps. Looking at it from an enjoyment standpoint, I'll tell you, getting kills with her nest is a hit of dopamine like no other. And that web stun coming every 3 seconds kinda sucks to play against, but it feels really good to use. But when compared to Venom, can she hold her own? Like I said, those Venom mains are really dedicated to this character, and he's not nearly as oppressive to play against. And at the highest levels, Venom runs things where Penny doesn't see much play. So even though she's much loved, I don't think I can give it to her in this round, and I think Venom actually takes the upset. Moon Knight versus Wolverine. It was weird to see Moon Knight so high on the pick rate ladder. I understand he's not very difficult to play, and it feels like you're getting a lot of value. But if I'm looking at it, Moon Knight's kind of a pain in the butt, just like Wolverine. He outputs a lot of damage, but Wolverine really does terrorize tanks non-stop, and he's good at it. I think they both have their niches. Obviously, the popularity contest goes to Moon Knight for some reason, but I don't think he's as much of a terrorist to play against, and I think people enjoy him a little bit more in the game than a Wolverine. So even though he doesn't have the high level success that Wolverine has, I am going to give Moon Knight the victory in this round. And last matchup on this side of the bracket for this round is Mantis versus Rogue. Now Rogue is one of our newest characters in the game. She's a lot of fun to play, has a ton of combos, but she also has plenty of counters, so she doesn't feel super oppressive in any situation. And her ult's not really deadly, but it is a game changer for sure. Taking away ults from your opponent can swing a fight on its own, and if you don't see it coming, you can be left stranded as the enemy team comes in with ultimates and you just can't respond. I think she's a very good addition, but how does she compare to Mantis? Mantis is somebody that enables her team above all else. Her ultimate, it does have some very unique properties, like speed boost and overhealth. I do think that Mantis is going to be hard to beat in any case. A Rogue is very one note, and I don't know if there's a huge Rogue community yet. So as that builds over time, I think I'm going to give Mantis this victory this round. We're moving on to Deadpool versus Spider-Man. Now this is Tank Pool. I found that a lot of people find Tank Pool to be one of the better variants of Deadpool. But can he compete with the popularity of Spider-Man, the fun playstyle of Spider-Man? Yes, Spider-Man is a little bit oppressive when it comes to the how does he feel to play against. He's also kind of pain in the butt when it comes to playing with a Spider-Man. I don't think Deadpool has had enough time in the game to garner that kind of hate. But in the fun to play category, Tank Pool is a lot of fun to play. Very versatile, pumps out a ton of damage. And I think he does match Spider-Man in that fun to play category. But because he's not much of a menace, like Spider-Man is, I think he's a little bit more enjoyable for the overall game. And I'm going to give it to Deadpool in this round. Next up, we got Luna Snow versus Jeff. If you would have asked me this question a couple months ago, easily would have been Luna Snow. But Jeff has had a huge resurgence ever since his rework. People weren't huge fans of it, but it's turned out to be absolutely great. It's great for newer players. Jeff really is a jack of all trades. Although he loses in the ultimate department to Luna Snow, I think both of them are a lot of fun to play. Jeff, easily one of the top 5 most fun characters to play in the game. But Luna's not nearly the menace that Jeff is. People actually don't mind playing against her anymore. So I think Luna Snow is going to take this battle, even though Jeff is a loved character. From an enjoyment standpoint, people just enjoy seeing Luna, playing Luna a little bit more. Next up, we have a weird matchup. Gambit, a game changer ever since he's hit the game roster. And Venom, one of the oldest characters in the game. If you've seen Gambit gameplay in the pros, he is the only thing that matters. Charging up your Gambit ult, running down the enemy team before they have a chance to respond, clashing with Gambit ults back and forth. Venom still does his part, especially at stalling and diving the back line, but I think Gambit in all aspects is just a little bit stronger than Venom, while not being a total menace in the game, at least not yet. If people have to play with Gambit, as long as they have one on their team, I think it's a-okay. So for this round, it's going to Gambit. Last matchup for this side, we're looking at Moon Knight versus Mantis. Moon Knight is very simple to play. Mantis, while being a 1-star difficulty in the game, has so many responsibilities and so many things to do. I think the gameplay for Mantis is just a little more stressful for the average player. where Moon Knight feels so rewarding. And when it comes to playing against these characters, you often don't notice the Mantis having that much of an impact on the game, but trust me, playing against a Mantis, especially in triple support, is oppressive. Especially if she's hitting her headshots and her sleeps, she can run the game by herself. So even though Moon Knight has a much larger following, Mantis comes through time and time again and might be a little bit more enjoyable for the game as a whole. And we see Tankpool versus Luna. Another very interesting matchup. I've said a lot about each one of these characters. If we're looking at enjoyment for the game, Luna has been in the spotlight for a very long time. I think people are a little bit sick of her, where Tankpool is shiny and new, and he lets you know about it. Tankpool right now is a lot of fun, very unique, and overall is just going to take this battle. Next up, Gambit versus Mantis. And I think this is where Mantis's run comes to an end. Gambit is insanely fun to play. No matter what role you main, Gambit is a different type of strategist. He has gameplay elements that fit any style. I used to love playing Gambit because it makes the game faster, much more explosive. So I think Gambit is a little bit more enjoyable for the game as a whole. And last but not least, for this left-hand side, we have Tankpool versus Gambit. Now, I've been playing Tankpool quite a bit in the past couple days, and he is probably the most unique version of Deadpool. However, I don't think he has the dynamic playstyle that I love, where Gambit has this amazing fun playstyle, an amazing fun ultimate. He might be slightly overtuned, but as long as both sides have one, Gambit's not a problem in my eyes. So in my opinion, I am going to give this to Gambit. Even though I am a tank player, I think Gambit is just a little bit more enjoyable overall for the game. And our first matchup will be The Thing versus Cap. So for this matchup, they both have a very similar style of rushing in, but they do very different things. The Thing can bully the front lines, put a lot of damage, jump out, or he can play a much more peel style, where Cap is constantly in the back lines, constantly being an annoyance for the team, making everybody turn their heads and getting out with his life. I think Thing fills a very specific niche in the game. He's a lot more simple to play than Captain America, and he kind of counters all the annoying heroes, where Cap honestly performs at the highest level so consistently. From an enjoyment standpoint, Cap is a lot more fun, but he's a lot worse to deal with. But because of that high level gameplay success, I think I'm going to give this round to Captain America. We'll see how far he goes. Continuing on, we have Doctor Strange versus Storm. Obviously, Strange is another jack of all trades. He covers offense, he covers defense. He has a great but fair ult, and he provides the integral portal. Where Storm, on the other hand, obviously she provides damage boost, outputs a ton of damage herself, but as time has gone by, her play rate has gone further and further down the drain. But for right now, Strange definitely outclasses her. On to Phoenix versus Iron Fist. I think both of them have their highlights. Phoenix is basically Hela, but with more utility. Honestly, I think she's one of the best DPS in the game. But Iron Fist has this ability to float between the tanks in the back line kind of effortlessly. He gets in, he gets out. He has a 360-degree block for some reason. So on an enjoyment level, I think even though Phoenix isn't the most fun to play, she's by far much less annoying to play against. And she's had the success at the highest level. So I think this round is going to Phoenix over Iron Fist. Next up, we have Hawkeye versus Magic. But I'll start off with the obvious that Hawkeye doesn't feel great to play against. And it shows in his ban rates. But I gotta be honest, he's probably one of the most satisfying heroes to be good at. And Magic is probably one of the most fair / balanced heroes in the game. She's never been overly oppressive, and the more time you put in, the more you get out on Magic. But she's a lot of fun to play. Sometimes can be a pain if you play against a really good Magic, but she does have plenty of counters. I think she is pretty enjoyable for the game, and Hawkeye is just in a bad spot enjoyability wise. So until that changes, I'm going to give this to Magic. Next up, Hela versus Namor. And it's wild that this ended up being a first round matchup. Obviously, they still have their team up with each other, but right now they are adversaries. Hela obviously is more deadly, and she's been meta for a very long time. Where Namor actually got some buffs this season that make him a lot more interesting on his own and a lot less reliant on that team up. From an enjoyability factor, I don't find Hela extremely fun to play. I haven't really heard that from a ton of people. They play her because she's kind of OP. Where Namor has a little bit more variability to his playstyle, whether you want to flank and execute the backline, or you want to hold your own backline, or even just poke at tanks all game. So this round is going to go to Namor, and with his buffs, I think he becomes more of a fan favorite in the seasons to come. Next up, a weird matchup, Loki versus Fantastic. In my opinion, Loki is one of the kings of the game. He's very rewarding to play. You have to be super crafty with, your escapes, because he doesn't have a ton of movement, but he has a ton of movement, if that makes any sense. And those lamps are probably an ultimate on cooldown. Where Fantastic is very enjoyable. He's finally found his footing, but even the numbers say it's too little too late. So this might be the easiest decision of the entire bracket, and I'm sorry to all the Fantastic mains out there, but I gotta go with Loki. Moving on, we have Ultron versus BP. So both of these characters are oppressive in their own way. Ultron, specifically in triple support, where BP has been a terrorist since this game's inception, constantly bullying the backline. However, he is very counterable, and people have been figuring this out slowly over time. So even though both of these characters aren't the most fun to play against, I think BP is infinitely more fun to play rather than Ultron. So I'm giving this one to Black Panther. And the last one for this round is Psylocke versus Daredevil. And honestly, they couldn't be more opposites. I think Psylocke got nerfed a little bit too much, where Daredevil hasn't been nerfed enough. Psylocke's ultimate requires an immediate response, where Daredevil's ultimate kind of kills over time. And while they're both dive DPS, they do it in different ways. Psylocke gets in and out almost undetected, where Daredevil will pretty much let you know that he's there. If we're looking at fun to play, they are both up there as very fun characters to play, but clearly Daredevil is a lot less fun to play against, and he's banned a ton for that reason. So we're going to keep this one easy, we're going to keep this one simple, and we're going to move Psylocke on for this round. That puts us right back up to the top, where we have Support Pool versus Captain America. So Support Pool is easily the most broken variant of Deadpool. If you haven't seen, you can get his ultimate in about 2 seconds. He does have the highest ban rate out of any of the 3 Deadpool variants, and I'm not a huge fan on how closely his kit resembles the DPS Deadpool. So I do think he is the strongest variant of Deadpool, but not the most interesting. Obviously, he's a new character, so he's very fun to play, but we're comparing him to Captain America, who, in my opinion, is insanely fun to play, has had great success in the pros. Because of the controversial playstyle of Support Pool, I am going to give this round to Captain America, and we will see our earliest Deadpool fall here in the second round. That brings us to Strange versus Angela. Another tank matchup. Gotta love to see those. We do have to introduce Angela here, and in my opinion, she's very much a demon of the skies, but I have to be honest, there's a lot of satisfaction that you get while playing her. Kidnapping people, throwing them off the map, does hit you with a sense of dopamine that can't be matched anywhere else, but it's a very different playstyle. You're basically playing a game of your own. I don't think enough people have experimented with Angela, but she is the 15th highest pick rate character in quick play, so I think people are coming around to her. But how does she compare to Strange? As we've discussed, Strange is kind of an all-arounder. He is a lot of people's comfort pick. He's not very oppressive in many ways, and he's kind of integral in high-level play with his portal. Even though Angela has had her success in the pros, because she's kind of a menace to myself, I'm giving this one to Strange. That might be a biased pick. Let me know in the comments how you feel about this matchup. Magneto versus Phoenix. Magneto is probably the most necessary character in the game. He's kind of like a conductor on the battlefield, and he has one of the best designed ults in the game. But for all those reasons, sometimes it does feel like jail when you play Mag. So even though he's so very good, sometimes he's not the most fun to play. However, he really does have impact on the battlefield. And when comparing that to Phoenix, who can sometimes take over a game by herself, again, very versatile DPS, one of the best in the game. This is two of the most elite characters in the entire roster going head to head. But I do think that Phoenix is a little bit more enjoyable, especially since on Mag you're very often solo tanking. So this round is going to Phoenix. Next up, we got Magic versus Cloak. So Cloak and Dagger just received a pretty nice buff in the most recent update. And with those buffs, she honestly feels really good. I don't think that she's broken, but the fact that she's accessible to everybody, where Magic does take a lot more skill. If you see a Cloak on the enemy team, you're not upset by any means, where Magic can be a little bit of a problem sometimes. So from an enjoyability standpoint, I think Cloak does take this one. I did not see this matchup coming. We have Invisible Woman and her Stalker. Now, Invis took some massive nerfs, and you really feel them in those shield nerfs the hardest. But she's still very, very good in every single comp. She has very few true counters in the game, and she's a huge counter to a lot of characters like Angela, Wolverine, etc. But how does she compare to Namor on an enjoyability factor? I think a lot of people really like playing Invis. She's one of the highest, if not the highest picked characters in competitive play, at least. Whenever she's not banned, she's almost an auto pick. I do think Namor has his upsides for a lot of players. He's kind of versatile in the things that you can do on him, but when we're looking at the numbers, he can't compete to Invis. So easily Invis is taking this round. The former king and queen of the meta, Loki versus Emma. Now, obviously Emma has been statistically falling every season since she's come out, and somehow is still super scary. Right now she feels strong, and sometimes she feels oppressive. But NetEase decided to give her a buff because she was falling a little bit too far. So maybe in the future they can make her a little bit less oppressive while still keeping her kind of strong in the meta. She's a lot of fun to play, but I don't know if she can keep up with Loki having so much going for him. I think Loki can change a game by himself in a multitude of different ways. Again, harder to play, but very rewarding when you do get good at him. Emma also being a very loved tank in the game, very high pick rate, still has a lot of people that don't like playing against her, and for that reason, I'm going with Loki. All right, looking at Rocket versus BP, and this is one where you would think BP eats up Rocket all day, but I think Rocket has a good fighting chance. Rocket is another one of those healers that is super fun because of his mobility. He's very easy to get value from. He can stay alive for a really long time, and his ultimate is very counterable, so playing against him never feels bad. And for those reasons, I think he actually clears BP in this matchup as far as an enjoyment standpoint. BP obviously has the higher skill ceiling, and there are some players that really love that challenge, but from an overall, I think Rocket is just better for the enjoyability of the game. And the last matchup for this round is going to be Psylocke versus DPS Deadpool. Obviously, DPS Deadpool isn't the most popular of the three. However, I do think he has the highest skill ceiling, although he has the least amount of impact. I just feel that there's a lot of DPS that can do what he does, but comparing him to Psylocke, I think Psylocke's a lot of fun to play. I think Psylocke has the better ultimate. I've seen what Psylocke can do at all levels. I just think that she's a little bit more enjoyable, so I'm going with Psylocke in this round. Let me know if I have something wrong about DPS Deadpool. I like what he does. I like what he offers to the game, but I think he's the weakest out of the three. And I think Psylocke, even with the nerfs, is just more enjoyable for the game. On to the third round of the right side. First up, another tank matchup. We got Captain America versus Doctor Strange. Now, while both of these characters were underdogs coming into this, they both have valid reasons to be here. I think Captain America is a lot of fun to play, has great success in the higher levels, but Doctor Strange is kind of just better all around. He's more of a comfort pick for a lot of people. He's not really oppressive or annoying like Cap is. So I think Strange is going to take this round for the enjoyability factor. Moving on to Phoenix versus Cloak. Now, while I'm not so much of a Cloak fan myself, I do see the importance of having her in the game, being a easy option for a lot of people to get started with, and the fact that you can get a lot of value on a character like this can be seen as problematic, but I think it's a good thing to get people to enjoy the game. Obviously, she's very counterable, especially her ult. Multiple things can take her out. Where Phoenix, outside of Season 3, where she was brand new, I don't think that the excitement for her really hit the same as a lot of the newer characters in the game. So I think that Cloak is just all around more enjoyable and better for a larger audience. So I'm going to pick Cloak here. Now this is a matchup. I think these two characters have been amazing throughout the entire history of Marvel Rivals. Loki being one of my favorite strategists in the game, and Invis having some of the most utility and really being just amazing no matter where you stick her. In the current moment, because Invis has left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, I think Loki is just the more enjoyable pick. Less problematic to see a Loki on the enemy team. So it is definitely Loki in this battle, but it should have been a lot closer. Next up, a very interesting battle. Psylocke versus Rocket. Now, I know Rocket has a very low entry point for a lot of players. Very easy to get value out of him. But that sometimes also makes the character a little bit more boring. Where Psylocke has a lot that you can do with her. A lot of success in the higher levels of play. I think Psylocke as a whole is just more well-rounded than a lot of characters in the game. From an enjoyability standpoint, I think she has a lot more to offer than Rocket does. Even though Rocket's very good for the game and very balanced, I'm going to give this round to Psylocke. Strange versus Cloak. Now, I didn't think Strange was going to make it this far. I'm not going to lie. Same with Cloak. I think this side of the bracket had some upsets for sure. Both of them are very easily comfort picks. They're very vital to the game. Right now, because of the buffs, Cloak is a little bit more controversial than Strange. And Strange actually got some buffs that give him the lethality that he was missing for a couple seasons now, and gave him a lot of flexibility with that new Cloak of Levitation movement. Overall, Strange feels a little bit more fresh than Cloak, and I'm going to give it to him in this round. Loki versus Psylocke. Two characters that I very much enjoy. Both very good at the highest level. From an enjoyability standpoint, I think more people just enjoy Loki, and with the addition of Lady Loki, brought a huge boom to the community. So I think I'm going to give it to Loki over Psylocke here. Now, this was not a semifinal that I was expecting to see, but Strange versus Loki. I've given arguments for both of these characters, and all in all, the comfort pick of Strange has to die out at some point. He does feel a little bit more fresh, but we have to remember that Loki was taken out back in Season 4, and he's already made his return. Although not enough people have recognized it, I think he is one of the strongest characters in the game. His damage output is higher than it originally was. His healing output is very, very good. His ultimate is as versatile as any other ultimate in the game for obvious reasons. While Strange is a jack of all trades, I do think that Loki edges him out as far as enjoyability. So I will be giving this one to Loki. And last but not least, Gambit versus Loki in the finals. I didn't see two strategists coming out on top here. I do think that Gambit is a game-changing character, but the fact that a lot of people see him as a must-ban makes him problematic. Even though I think he's a lot more fun to play than Loki, I think that opposition for Gambit would be a lot higher than the opposition for Loki at the moment. And I think that Loki overall takes the crown as most enjoyable character in the game. All around, fun to play, rewarding to play. You enjoy having him on your team. You don't mind seeing him on the enemy team. With a big shout out to Gambit, but Loki has to be the champion in my eyes. And that means that Loki is our champion for the first ever Marvel Rivals tournament bracket. But let me know how you liked it in the comments below. This has been Judgment Monk with the Marvel Rivals tournament series. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, as more Rivals content is sure to come. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.